私自身でもこんなのは初めてのことで驚いている。
Calamity, an event causing great or often sudden damage or distress, a disaster. This force has been influencing human history for thousands of years, whether it be a car accident or a sudden earthquake. Calamity is unbiased in who or what it affects. It's sorta like Murphy's Law in a way. The idea that if something can go wrong, it likely will. With a force this powerful, one manages to control it would make them Calamity incarnate. Unfortunately, an individual like that exists, and that fact has skyrocketed their stand to potentially the most powerful in the series.
Thunder over you.
Within Jojo, there are many fundamental forces that influence the world, such as fate and gravity. These two forces have constantly been stated to be impossible to avoid. Even if your abilities are built around avoiding fate, it will somehow always find a way to bypass it. That's because fate is integral to the world's function. Just like the force of gravity, it influences everything and controls everything, even stand abilities. A fundamental component that allows fate and gravity to achieve this is logic and reason. Everything has to follow logic in order to function. Logic is why the world can function. Logic is why we're able to think. Logic is what allows stand abilities to exist. For example, it's only logical that a stand controlling gravity of the universe would be allowed to accelerate time, because time and gravity are intertwined together. Even if the abilities are somehow out there in terms of function, the fact that they need some sort of trigger to activate, or borrow an aspect of the world or universe to achieve certain tasks, mean they follow their own type of logic, outside of everything. I only brought up logic and reason because that's the force Wonder Review manipulates as part of his ability. He brings out the negative aspects of logic, otherwise known as Calamity. Since logic exists in all things, Calamity is everywhere. Calamity is logic itself. In other words, Wonder Review fights his opponents with facts and logic. Calamity brings impending doom onto anyone who pursues to stand or its user, by using their surrounding environment or individuals. You could suddenly trip on a banana peel, for example, and break your neck. You could get electrocuted by a piece of technology falling in your bathtub, or your car's extended warranty could expire. Even if you're 100% sure you're safe wherever you are, inanimate objects can start moving on their own or break on their own in an attempt to initiate calamity, such as when a cup seemingly falls by itself, likely hoping that its pursuer would slip on it. The calamity is meant to keep individuals away from the stand user, so objects will always come out of nowhere to stop them, no matter how small or insignificant. Even if the objects seem harmless, Wonder Review's calamity massively increases the damage they cause, even if they seem extremely illogical. Rain can suddenly start hitting as hard as bullets, even if they're normal to everyone else. Bumping into things a certain amount of times can cause your limbs to literally fall off. Rai only survived because of his ability. Wonder Review can't only infect the environment, it can also exploit your own senses, body, or other behaviors to achieve its goal. Any medical conditions or physical conditions you may have can randomly go haywire as a result of calamity. You could overdose on a drug, even if you took the correct dose, or perhaps you didn't take the correct dose, even without realizing it. The aggression of certain people becomes higher to the point where they physically attack you. This will happen regardless of if you actually did something to them or not. If you already had a good relationship with them, that won't matter. Any negative emotions they feel will be massively amplified and directed towards you. However, because Calamity is actively affecting them, they can be killed by Calamity indirectly, or their actions can manifest another Calamity. Calamity is completely random in how it behaves. There isn't any way to effectively predict it. It's possible to avoid Calamity, but that will only result in another Calamity manifesting immediately. The Calamities start off simple and somewhat harmless, but continued pursuit will cause them to increase in power. All things heaven and earth, and the connection between them, none of them will be by your side. This is what Rai said when describing Wonder Review. It basically means that Calamity will use everything as a weapon against you, even forces that were never intended to bring harm. Wonder Review used Josuke's bubbles against Rai, despite the fact that they weren't intended for him, meaning Calamity can redirect your allies' attacks towards you. The intention to pursue is one way to activate Calamity. To pursue doesn't necessarily mean running after the stand or its user. The intention to do any sort of harm to them or attempting to stop its plans in any way will activate Calamity. For example, Yasuo wasn't really attacking or going after the stand user here, but her calling someone with the intention of that individual attacking the standard user counted as pursuit. The Calamities go after people in a list-like format. Anyone who intends to pursue Toru or their stand the most will be immediately targeted first. Once the Calamity is done with them, it will move on to its next target. The list is constantly rotating and shifting priorities, but it's not possible to exploit this aspect of the ability. You'll still be somewhat attacked by Calamity, even if you're not on top of the list, but it will in no way be as relentless or powerful as the ones attacking those at the top of the list. Another way to activate Calamity is looking at the stand's back or the user's face, which seems to initiate Calamity almost immediately and results in the most intense of Calamity, sometimes multiple at the same time. The stand is a remote type with massive range, being able to exist extremely far away from its user. The stand has high intellect and is able to think and make decisions on its own, similar to other stands like Cheap Trick. This allows Toru to be in two places at once, and he can see through the eyes of his stand, although just because he isn't with his stand doesn't mean he's powerless, as Calamity will activate no matter if you encounter the user or stand. The stand seems to be able to instantly teleport anywhere it wants throughout Morio, sometimes so fast that it appears in two places at once. This extends to Calamity, as the stand appeared behind Josuke within his car in a hidden location only seconds before he was attacked by Calamity. It doesn't matter if you're on the other side of the planet. If you intend to pursue Toru, the stand will always manifest nearby. Wonder of You has some sort of defensive Calamity shield, which protects them from all forms of attack and makes sure you can never reach them. The range in which you attack Wonder of You is irrelevant, even if you're only centimeters from attacking them. Calamity will always manifest and prevent you from hurting them. The stand seems to have the ability to phase through objects like glass and can glide through flat surfaces. They can take the form of certain individuals, with its favorite form being the head doctor. The stand's look is different depending on who's looking at it, with most seeing the actual stand's face, which appears to be a microphone. There exist 4 ways to deal with Calamity. The first and most effective is to stop pursuing entirely. In other words, simply give up hope of fighting them or getting in their way. This will then cause Calamity to move on to someone else. Another is for the user to somehow be hurt by an attack, which results in Calamity temporarily stopping, although good luck fighting someone who can hurt them. You could get the stand or user to pursue you instead, allowing you to close the distance while not activating Calamity, although this still won't allow you to attack them effectively. The final way to deal with Calamity is to somehow hurt Toru without the intention to pursue him, closing the distance with seemingly no intention to harm them. This is not only extremely difficult, but it's also only temporary, because Calamity will immediately target you once you get one free hit in. If Toru or the stand is unsure if someone is pursuing them or not, getting some sort of verbal or physical confirmation will activate Calamity. In case an individual somehow doesn't trigger Calamity towards them, that won't matter. Wonder if You can also create his own calamities by setting loose certain objects or creatures that have the capacity to inflict great harm. Wonder if You is made out of Calamity energy. This Calamity energy exists in all things, just like time and space. Logic, or otherwise known as Calamity, is a universal law that has always existed and will constantly exist even at the universe's end. As Wonder if You stated, that logic and reason is tied to everything that the world possesses. The powerful pull of fate, which has guided the Jojo world, is still following the flow of logic and reason. Attacking Wonder of You or getting past its defenses is impossible, because that would mean that the standard object somehow exists outside of the world's logic, which again exists within everything. No matter what stand ability you throw at Wonder of You, they still follow logic and reason, even in their own bizarre ways. The Calamity energy is so powerful that the stand can continue to exist even when the user dies, simply because the Calamity energy is everywhere. Wonder if You surpasses every stand in the series, simply because it controls the force that they use to achieve their goals. If we pit Wonder if You against the world, you may think that Time Stop would be a checkmate. Well, not quite. The world within Stop Time is following logic. The concepts of friction, momentum, and gravity still exist. Those are the only reasons things can still be interacted with. Since logical forces like those still exist, that means Calamity can still function within Stop Time. Wonder if You may not be able to do anything, but Dio can still trip and break his neck, or step on a rusty nail packed full of Ligma microbes. When looking at characters from other universes, I'd like to call attention to Accelerator from the Index series. He has the ability to manipulate vectors. A vector is anything that has a magnitude and direction. Magnitude being the energy required for something to move, and direction being, well, the direction of the magnitude is moving an object. Even if an object is completely stationary, their cells and atoms are still moving, and the objects have the capacity to be moved somewhere else, giving them vectors. Just like Calamity, vectors exist everywhere and are impossible to avoid. The Accelerator uses these vectors to redirect attacks, move things around like telekinesis, or do things you would never even thought of. The character has never lost in his own series and is pretty much unstoppable. Well, except that one time. With a character this powerful, how would they do against Wonder View? Well, Accelerator would be able to redirect any Calamity the stand sends his way. However, it's interesting because despite the fact that he can redirect anything, the concepts of vectors still follow logic and reason in order to function, meaning Wonder View not only bypasses the vector manipulation, but could never be harmed by any of the attacks Accelerator sends his way. Accelerator may be untouchable, but he still allows certain things to reach him, such as air, rain, and sound. Something Wonder View can definitely take advantage of. This also applies to similar characters like Jojo. Despite the unstoppable nature of Wonder View, there exist stands that could potentially give it a run for its money. A stand everyone will immediately think of is Gold Experience Requiem, with its ability to revert actions of individuals and objects to zero. One may think it could simply return the calamities to zero. Another interesting thing to analyze is that both Wonder View and GER have stated that no stand abilities would get past their defenses. However, I'd like to draw your attention towards what Araki said in an interview where he claims that Calamity is the most powerful stand ability within the series, a terrifying stand ability that nobody can overcome. With this perspective, it's possible that Calamity would constantly attack GR until it reaches victory. Remember, a stand ability could seem unstoppable at first glance, but they always have some sort of weakness that can be exploited. We've only really seen a small glimpse of what Return to Zero can do. I could be wrong in all this, and GR Wonder View would constantly be at a stalemate, with neither side being able to close the distance. If Wonder View's logic itself, and pretty much manipulates fate to its advantage, then that means that nobody can stop it, right? Well, not quite, as there exists a stand that can get past its defenses. I'm of course talking about Soften Way Go Beyond, a stand that can fire a spherical line that's so thin that it almost doesn't exist. The bubble not existing means it doesn't follow the laws of logic and reason, allowing it to hurt Wonder View. Despite this powerful ability, the stand is still weaker than Wonder View. First of all, it has no way of dealing with the calamities Wonder View sends his way. Josuke almost died from a calamity, even with the powerful ability at his disposal. Second of all, the bubbles may be strong, but they still can't be properly aimed or controlled. Wonder View manipulates the entire world to its advantage, and can defeat foes without lifting a finger. Josuke still needs to put effort into fighting, even with Go Beyond. And it's not like Go Beyond can solo most of the Jojo universe with his ability, unlike Wonder View. Its control over the concepts of logic and calamity still makes the stand overall more powerful. Calamity may in fact be the most powerful force within the world of Jojo. Not only does it exist within everything, but it can never be truly destroyed. Wonder View is pretty much the physical embodiment of the Final Destination movies. You may think Time Erasure or Heavy Weather is more powerful, but unless they also transcend logic, they don't stand a chance. No stand except maybe 3 can stand up to Calamity, and it's no wonder Josuke needed to transcend logic itself in order to win, even just barely.